For years, I tried to change my beliefs while my nervous system was still completely sensitized. I would go deep into the mindset work. I would change my thoughts. I would interrupt my thoughts. I would redirect my thoughts. And I would try with all my might to convince myself through my thinking that I was safe so that my symptoms would go away. And none of it landed. None of it worked. So in this video, I'm going to explain to you why thought work or working on your beliefs may not be healing your nervous system and what you must do before you work on your thinking. So there is a lot of talk out there in the chronic symptom community about thoughts and about beliefs and about what you're thinking all the time and what you need to be doing with your thoughts. Big highlight on that. There's a lot of talk about how we need to be doing things with our thoughts all the time. I've used the example that I've heard online once about someone being like they redirected their thoughts 300 times a day or more, right? So there is so much importance placed on your thinking when you're consuming content online, when you're learning from creators, reading books, watching content. I am not against belief work. I'm actually a huge fan of it. But here's the thing that you're going to hear me say again and again. It's about sequence. To say that the order in which you do things doesn't matter, especially if you're sensitized, is crazy. It absolutely matters the order in which you do things if you want to actually heal. And if you don't know if you're sensitized or if you're just dysregulated, I have a quiz that you can take. It's really quick, really fast, and I'm going to link it in the description. Here's what I want to explain first. Everything is connected. So we have our thoughts, we have how we feel, we have our behaviors and the things that we do. And I see these things kind of like this, like we have our thoughts and then we have our feelings and then we have our behaviors. I see it as a loop, but it's also kind of like a ladder, which I'll get into in a little bit. Everything is connected. When you have thoughts, they make you feel a certain way. And when you feel a certain way, you do things or you don't do things. All of these things are feeding each other. So you can I like to say you can kind of enter anywhere at the loop. So you could, if you changed how you felt, you would start doing something different. And if you do something different, you're going to automatically have new thoughts. That's what I mean by they all drive each other and they all feed each other. Now, when you are sensitized, that is, your nervous system is in a state of chronic dysfunction, and it is firing off all different types of symptoms in all different systems of your body. Your behaviors are the heaviest part of that loop. So we have our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors. On the bottom here are your behaviors, and it's the heaviest part, right? There's a lot going on there. When you're sensitized, that is where your leverage is. And that's why that's the number one thing I talk about when I'm referring to sensitization in the nervous system. So let's talk about why behavior is the move, especially when you're sensitized. When you're sensitized, you have very little access to your higher brain. I like to the brain obviously has many different parts of it, but I like to kind of think of it in two. We have that higher part of our brain, our prefrontal cortex, who can think about the future and our goals, and it's our decision-making, rational part of our brain. However, when you're sensitized, the main part of your brain that's calling the shots, creating the thoughts, driving the dysfunction is the lower part of your brain, the limbic part of your brain, the part responsible for feelings and emotions and stress responses. When you're sensitized, we have very little access to that prefrontal cortex. It's like borderline offline. And so if you think about it, using the brain and thinking to drive change when that part of your brain isn't really online and is not available is not going to be enough. It's not going to work very well. It's like we're like, okay, this part is completely offline. I'm going to try to use it to heal. I'm going to try to use it to cause a change in what I'm doing in my life, a change in my behavior, a change in my feeling and the way I'm experiencing life. When you really think about it, it doesn't make much sense for that to be the primary way that we heal and change our behavior when you're sensitized. Behavior, what you do, how you respond, that is something that you can change. And it's something that I want you to keep that in mind. Like, keep it simple. If I'm sensitized, my power is in my behavior. My power is in my response. Now, that's not to say your brain isn't in any way connected with that. But I'm going to kind of explain why I see this working a little bit differently as far as where in the loop we are starting from. When you change your behavior, that bottom of the three, your thinking begins to update on its own. You don't have to force a new belief. The new experience that you begin having when you respond differently, when you choose to do different things like actions, updates all of the belief that we need updated at this point by itself. So I'm going to just tell you, don't worry about it. Don't make it your main focus, is what I'm going to say. In the desensitized stage, we actually work with the subconscious first, or with that lower part of the brain. And we do that through response and behavior. Response to symptoms and the behaviors that we're engaging in, which I'll get into. This is about how you respond to your sensations, how you respond to discomfort, thoughts, feelings, how you respond to what you're experiencing in any present moment, and what to do when your system has its own reactions, when it's doing its own thing. And then you're working on your response to your nervous system's response. But it's all response. Most of it is based in response. And those responses are constantly sending signals to your brain, which is what gives us the ability to retrain our brain using experience, using behavior primarily at first, for now, while you're sensitized, okay? That is exactly what I teach in my course. I will go ahead and link it below. But let's talk about compulsive behaviors and why they are the problem and kind of the entry point here as far as that loop, and just letting those thoughts and beliefs update on their own. Most people who are sensitized are deep in compulsive behaviors. And this was the main thing that I saw missing from the pain and chronic symptom world. Someone asked me on YouTube the other day, like, who I got inspired by and who I learned from. And I said a big part of my healing and my progression, my pretty quick progression, I would say, was learning more about OCD and learning more about the way OCD recovery works, and realizing how much that was missing, and how I saw coaches in this space, in the mind-body space, struggle working with people who had this really obsessive, compulsive component where they just couldn't stop these compulsive behaviors. And I was like, no one's talking about this in this space, about like, I can't stop checking, monitoring, avoiding things that scare me, seeking reassurance, constant commenting on people's YouTube videos, sending people DMs, always needing a follow-up and needing to ask question after question after question just to get a little bit of reassurance. Reassurance seeking is not talked about in the mind-body world. Hopefully it is now, because I'm trying to bring that conversation in. But these behaviors are majorly keeping your system stuck, and no one's talking about them. I'm telling you, I don't feel like I ever heard anyone talking about the issue with compulsively watching recovery stories. Compulsively. I watched them compulsively. I couldn't stop. Compulsively trying to hunt down people from those recovery stories, trying to talk to coaches, trying to do whatever I could. That was compulsive. That was one of the main things that kept my system in that high alert and that hypervigilance. When you realize that those behaviors are keeping you stuck, you really have something concrete to work with. People don't want to work with reassurance. They don't want to drop the reassurance. They don't want to drop all of these compulsive behaviors. They want to journal. They want to visualize. They want to meditate. They want to use tools. And while they're using all those tools, they haven't stopped any of the compulsive behaviors. It's a huge problem. And there's a huge gap in conversation around it. When you focus there, when you focus on pulling back the compulsive things that you're doing, and those can be compulsive external things, like the Googling, reassurance, all that. They could also be compulsive internal things of like looping and engaging with your thinking constantly. Working on your thinking can be compulsive, and it is in many, many cases. That's why I like to say if you deal with OCD-like components or really bad anxiety, you're not going to like this, but you have to earn your tools. Like, you have to desensitize a little bit and then knock yourself out with the tools. You will be able to use them responsibly at some point. But when you pull them back, your system starts to calm. We work directly with behavior. And when that system calms, your sense of what's possible for you, AKA what you believe, starts to shift on its own. We're not forcing it. It just does it as a byproduct of changed behavior and a changed experience, which automatically updates that for you. So think of it like a ladder. Again, It's hard because I see it in my mind as a ladder, but I also see it as a loop. So you'll have to work with me on the way my brain kind of sees this. But when you're sensitized and that behavior rung of the ladder is bloated and heavy, as we can get that to slim down, AKA we reduce all of those compulsive behaviors and all the things we're doing that are driving the alarm, you will have more access to the thinking rung of the ladder. You will be able to access more of your rational brain, which you don't have access to right now if you're sensitized. Again, take my quiz if you don't know. But trying to outthink all of your behavior is not a good idea. You cannot just skip to the top of the ladder. And I slowed myself down a lot because I tried to. I knew belief work was important. I knew I had unhelpful beliefs for sure. We all do. But I tried to stay at the top of the ladder while just doing the most compulsive behaviors all day long. And then you have these compulsive behaviors driving more obsessive thinking because the system is just a wreck. I mean, no offense. It's sensitized. And so to use that part of the ladder and to really focus on thinking and belief work while there's so much compulsive and unhelpful behavior going on is just you throttling out all of your energy. And we can't do that because your capacity is low when you're sensitized. The thoughts that you're having when you're sensitized and experiencing a lot of chronic symptoms are not the problem. They are not a problem that needs to be fixed because you're going to have a lot of thoughts, scary thoughts, intrusive thoughts, dark thoughts, but those thoughts are being generated by the sensitized nervous system. So in this way, I see it kind of as a loop where why would I focus on thoughts that are being generated by the nervous system? Because they are in and of themselves an illusion. Because they're being driven by how scared I feel. So to work on the thoughts and be like, I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe. And my nervous system is like, this is the end. My nervous system is saying this is the end. That's the thought that I have. And I'm going to try to tell myself I'm safe. When my belief is that this is the end and my body feels this terror and doom, I'm supposed to override that with my thinking. Do you understand why that doesn't work? Why you would have to try so hard to try to override that because it's linked so directly to the way we feel in our body. You could say that what I advocate for is in some way a body-based approach, but only in the sense that we're working so much with behavior and what our body is doing in the day-to-day and how we react to what's going on in our body and our nervous system. So because those thoughts are being generated by a sensitized nervous system, they become the symptom of what we're experiencing, not the source of it. It's not, the thoughts aren't the source of the problem. They're a symptom of the sensitized nervous system, which is quote unquote the problem. So we don't try to dig into those thoughts and fix them because it doesn't make sense. Because the system is still so activated and so sensitized. A sensitized nervous system in and of itself produces scary thinking. That's just what it does. Remember that. When you're sensitized and freaking out about your thinking, be like, this makes perfect sense. My nervous system is interpreting that there is a really big problem here. Therefore, creating really fearful thinking. Once the system calms down, as you could guess, the thinking is going to settle at least to some lower baseline on its own. You're not going to have to worry about making that happen. It's just going to be a result of the baseline of your nervous system coming down is going to bring the fearful thoughts and the illusion type, like not based in reality thoughts back down lower. And once the system calms and that thinking settles on its own, you realize I didn't have to fight this. I didn't have to force this and make this happen. I just had to address what was underneath it. I had to address the cause of the thinking. People try really hard to control their thoughts when they're sensitized, and it's exhausting and it's pretty fruitless to do. You actually have much more control and access of your thinking once the system is less sensitized. So the goal is not to fix thoughts. It is to calm the system that is producing the thoughts. I want to talk about where belief work actually does fit in, because like I said, I am a fan. And the beliefs that you have become a lot more apparent as you desensitize. My beliefs became very, very clear and easy to work with and understandable, and I was able to take action. I was able to update those beliefs so easily once I was out of sensitization, to be honest. I would say about 6 to 8 months into my desensitization, where I didn't feel sensitized anymore. I was more so dealing with dysregulation, and then my body symptoms were catching up as far as still coming down, but I wasn't in that chronic state of fear and alarm anymore at all. Belief work is better suited for a system that is living more in a dysregulated state sometimes. So occasionally we are out of our window of tolerance. We get stuck there sometimes. That is when tools are very helpful. And I mean tools like journaling, visualization, meditation, but also tools that directly update beliefs. Tools like EFT or journaling or just thought work in general, mindset work is better suited when you aren't in this chronic state of sensitization. That is when we have access to that higher brain. So it just works. I don't know how else to describe it better than it just works. You have the capacity to do it. Is it impossible to do mindset work and belief work when you're sensitized? No, of course. Is it the best use of your time and attention and energy? No, I do not believe that it is. And I find that the people that resonate with my information the most are the people who tried that and they're not making any headway. So from my point of view, I'm like, drop it for like 4 to 6 months, focus on your response, focus on your behaviors, and we'll get to it. And it'll be juicy and it'll be like these huge aha moments. You'll reconnect to your intuition. It's very, very beautiful to do that work, but it's just about the sequence. We're just going to do it a little bit further down the line. So once behaviors come down, your thinking will update on its own and capacity will go up. And that's when the belief work lands. You just need more capacity to do it so that it actually sticks. And then you can look at thoughts of like, feelings of unworthiness or beliefs that nothing ever works out for you, things like that. So the simplified version here is for a sensitized nervous system, we use behavior to update thoughts. We use behavior to update whatever beliefs it's just going to update in the process of you taking new action. When you're more regulated, we use thoughts to shape our behavior. So we from sensitization, we work from the bottom of the ladder and that updates the top of the ladder. From dysregulation, we can work from the top of the ladder to influence more of the bottom of the ladder. You could consider this, if you've heard it spoken about, with top down versus bottom up types of methods. My sensitization process is more of like a bottom up method to start. And then once you're just dealing with some regular on and off dysregulation, you can change your thoughts to change your life. You can change your thoughts to change your behaviors. Very powerful. At a later date. The one thing I want to close on is the one belief that actually matters right now, because I am not saying that belief doesn't matter at all. And I kind of want to separate beliefs from belief that you can heal. That specific belief. And that is the one belief that I believe needs to be there. You can't just sit around constantly doubting. So do you need to work on your beliefs compulsively? No, you do not. Please don't. Can you just sit around all day being like, this isn't going to work, this isn't going to work, this works for everyone but me? No, you can't. You can have doubt. There's this belief in like the TMS mind body world that you have to have 100% belief that you're going to heal. My belief grew over time. But one thing I did have to choose to do was stop doubting. So when I had thoughts that came up that were really doubtful and hopeless, I had to allow them to be there. I had to accept that they were here, allow them to be there, and not engage with them. That is a behavior I had to stop. So when it comes to your thinking, more of this is going to be a non-engagement with unhelpful thinking versus I need to interrupt it. I need to redirect it. I need to change it. No, I need to stop engaging with it. I need to let it be there without my attention, which again is the work of desensitization. That is how you apply desensitization work to thinking, but it's all the same. When you're desensitizing, it's around thoughts, feelings, sensations, pain, symptoms, all of it. Okay. Big ol' umbrella that we throw it under. Every time that you change a behavior, every time you don't Google, every time you don't ask for reassurance, or you don't avoid something you're scared of, or you respond with less fear, you are already signaling that you believe something else is possible. Okay. I'm going to kind of say that again, because it's very important to know how acting differently updates your beliefs on its own without your micromanagement. Every time you behave differently, you respond differently to what you're experiencing, you are already signaling that you believe something different is possible. There's already a belief updating. The action that you're taking, the new action that you're taking, is the belief. It is the updated belief, because someone who doesn't believe things are ever going to get better doesn't do anything. They have a belief. There's an underlying belief underneath that lack of action. Your beliefs will update automatically whatever beliefs need to. You will start having new experiences and you'll start being like, oh my God, what if this is going to work? I think I'm getting better. I think I'm moving in the right direction. All of that is your thoughts updating in lifetime based on changed behavior, based on a changed response. So when you catch yourself trying to argue with your own mind and feeling like you're having thoughts you don't want to have, or that there are beliefs that you need to change, or you're trying to convince yourself with your brain to your sensitized nervous system, I'm safe, there's nothing to worry about here. I want you to just take a second and pause. And I want you to ask yourself, am I trying to think my way past something that my system hasn't really caught up to yet? Am I trying to use my mind to get myself out of this position that I'm in? Because if you are doing that, it's time to come back to your behavior. It's time to come back to your response. That is where your power is in the moment. And let the experience do the work. As I say over and over in my course, let life be the regulator. Work with this and work with your nervous system experientially. Like, show it new experiences. Your healing is not hidden in some magical tool or technique. It is in your response and your changed behavior. The belief work is not going anywhere. It's going to be there when you're ready. You can pick whatever resonates with you the most. You can do it from this higher state of consciousness, having more access to that higher part of your brain, and it's going to stick and it's going to work. And I'm hyped for you. And I want you to remember that I care deeply about you. I care deeply about helping you to do this in a way that's going to help you get better and help you get your life back. That's very important to me because I know what it's like to lose your life to these scary thoughts and to feel like it's just shrinking and shrinking and shrinking until you believe there's nothing left. And that's a very scary, depressing, hopeless place to be. But I've been there, and I believe that my foray with rock bottom has given me an outlook on this that allows me to really get where a lot of people are coming from and starting from, which allows me to not bullshit you and to just give it to you straight and direct and no BS, because I want to help you get better, and I want to help you get better as quickly as possible. And I know that this process takes time, and I ask myself daily if there is some way that I can help people do this faster. And that is the reason why I created my course, because I want to be able to give you exactly what you need to implement change as quickly as possible so that you're not suffering any longer than you need to, because I can guarantee there's already been so much unnecessary suffering that you've been through. And I want you to know that you can get better and that you will heal, and you just need a little grain of hope at this point. And then you need to work with your response, work with your behavior, let those beliefs update on their own. And once they do, we can work on those beliefs. All right, I'll see you guys next week. Bye, everybody.